It's not a matter of taking a 35mm camera in my case, picking it up, loading it with film, looking through the viewfinder and centering a needle. That's great. That was when I first started in business, and I used to go into the park and shoot 3, 4, 5, 10 rolls of film and come up with a good shot. Now what's happening is, in the business I'm in, and it is a business, I really have to know what's going to be on film before I ever pull a camera out of my safe. And that requires a lot of thinking, a lot of planning, a lot of plotting. Every detail is worked out. There are surprises, and they happen constantly. But for the most part, I really have to know that it's going to work. Getting a layout from an agency on the champagne popping shot was very simple. Simple to draw, it looks right, and of course in an illustration it looks perfect. It got to me and I looked at the thing, and I have to interpret what it will look like on film. Now, something of that nature, your first thought is, well, hell, we'll have somebody hold a champagne bottle, get out a 35mm, we will put it on a motor drive and get it. Wrong. There's so much that goes into getting that cork precisely to fit on the page, so it's not a 1/4 of an inch to the right or the left. We don't want that champagne coming out of the bottle and being a total blur, nor did I want it frozen in time to look like a piece of plastic. Okay, you want to bring that plexi in, and let's get it up on the 2 hooks on the bottom, okay? Okay, I decided on a frosted plexi background so I could actually control the light coming from behind it. I needed a light bottom and a dark top in the shot to separate the cork from the background, to separate the little bit of smoke coming out of the bottle. I wanted it dark, and it gave me a little bit of depth. So we used a frosted plexi background, put a light behind it, dropped the card in to get a little bit of a shadow on the top. I could regulate the amount of softness or hardness, contrast with that. And that's good. Okay, terrific. I wanted that plexi tub in there to catch liquid, because I knew well that that champagne coming out was going to drip and slop over everything. You know, we put the tarp in there to just catch the cork, the champagne, because in a photo studio, you know, we have a lot of expensive equipment. We don't want everything wet and nasty, and we don't want to spend 2 days mopping up. Champagne gets very sticky underfoot. Well, the cork I wanted to float right over the top of the bottle. So we through our piece of plexi, drilled a tiny little hole, fitted a piece of steel wire, which had just enough flexibility so the cork would bob, and just stuck the cork on there, and from camera position you couldn't see that piece of wire running through to the background, and gave the illusion of just floating over the bottle. Okay, the problem on this particular item was the bottle being shot on 8x10. I didn't want to move, so we had epoxied a rod to the bottle, which was held in a stand so it would not move, stay absolutely in place. I had a hole drilled in the bottom of the bottle by a glazier, precise size, to fit a piece of neoprene hosing, which was then epoxied in. The hosing ran down to a gate valve, which could control the amount of flow of liquid through it. Ran down to another piece of hosing from that to a quick on-off valve, which ran down to a high-pressure pump, which ran into a big red bucket full of a mixture of champagne and ginger ale. The problem was actually triggering the camera at a precise instant in time. I am not capable of that. I don't think anybody is. By the time you squeeze that cable release and it goes through all the mechanical things, that cork is about 15 feet out of frame. So what we did is got the Dale beam, which is an infrared device which will trip the camera. The beam was set up just along top of the cork. And the way the thing is rigged now is when the valve is opened up, and the champagne is forced out, hits the cork being on the steel wire, bobs slightly, breaks the beam, and triggers the flash.
That's it, hang on. Yeah,
Yeah, that's terrific. I think the beam's just passing. There it is, beautiful. Ba-dum, we have our picture. To ensure that we saw what we were getting on film, we also put a 2 1/4 camera up above the 8x10 with a Polaroid back on it. By opening both shutters at the same time, when that light flashed, we got 2 pictures. One on 8x10 film, one on 2 1/4 film. I could then take that piece of 2 1/4 film and look at it. Small, but it would show me just what I got on film. Rather than going through 700 sheets of 8x10 film, which is a little too expensive, I could do it in 20 shots.
With all the elements in place, Seidman tests all his ideas before the actual shoot. First, the bottle is topped off, then sprayed with a glycerin and water mixture to add sparkle to the surface. A small piece of dry ice is dropped into the liquid to add an extra element to the composition. And finally, Barry shoots. Once the test is inspected, the hand model steps in, adding the finishing touch.
Let's get it going. Go ahead, Al. Good shot. Okay. You know, the actual shooting can be 5 minutes. It's the working out the problems. I've had people come to me with problems. I consider myself, besides a photographer, a designer, a shooter, I have to be a problem solver. You know, in so many of the cases, it is solving those little split seconds in time and making it look like what someone has a preconceived notion of how it should be. You know, you've seen shots that don't look anything like the real world. You know, a millionth of a second, a bullet frozen in time, or a glass exploding or something. We never see those things. In photography, you really see that, and I think you have to work at it to make it look like what you think it should look like, not what it actually looks like.